What's going on, y'all? So, I wanted to take a moment to talk about a deck that I've been having a really lot of fun playing with, and that's Swordsoul. Now, of course, Swordsoul is a very good deck, very strong, and it's very popular in the meta. The problem with Swordsoul, in my opinion, is the fact that the deck is very expensive. In 3 cards, Mo Yi, Ecclesia, and Baronne de Fleur. Now, Baronne is obviously because of the negation and it's generic. Ecclesia is because of Fallen of Albaz, in addition to the fact that it's free special into Taya or Moye, and Moye is expensive because it's a secret rare short print, thank you Konami. But to focus on a cheaper orientation of this deck is what I've built here. And this is something that I actually took inspiration from a yugioh Pro deck list. I used Assault mode in order to facilitate getting a sort of Baron-like negate in the form of Stardust Dragon Assault mode, but adding more Tenyi cards and 1-card starters so that you can play through a lot of hand traps. This deck plays through a lot so long as you don't commit to your normal summon by the use of Baxia, Yazi, and whatnot in order to continue playing. And you can use Chao Feng, of course, to play through Nibiru. To start off on the card by card, we're going to obviously have the 1 copy of Swordsoul Mo Yi. This is probably the most expensive card in the main deck and the expensive card in the entire deck itself. But you do need to play at least 1 in order to give the deck a lot more consistency and a lot more power. Getting that draw is really important, and card advantage with this deck is everything. Then of course 3 copies of Long Yuan, 3 copies of Taie. These are the cheap Swordsoul, so you might as well max out on them. And then because the Ghost from the Past is the second haunting, all the Tenyis got reprinted, so of course 3 copies of Ashuna, 3 copies of Vishada, and 3 copies of Adhara. I don't need to explain what the Tenyis do, they're pretty common. We do have 1 Shtana in here, and that's because of Dragite. Dragite also got reprinted, so it's pretty cheap, but Dragite needs Waters in the Grave. Now, without 3 Mo Yi, it's hard to do that, but with Shtana, you can use Vessel of the Dragon Cycle to send Shtana in order to get that dragon online. Now for the Assault mode package, of course, we have the 1 Assault Beast, 1 Assault Sniper. Assault Sniper is actually a very good card. Low-key, it becomes a Tenyi with Psy Reflector because you can reveal any of the monsters in the extra deck, make it a worm, and then go into Chi-Shao. Then of course Psy Reflector, the 1-card Assault mode that makes the entire engine possible. And then the Brick, or the Garnet, Stardust Dragon Assault mode. This, you use Assault mode activate on the draw phase in order to bring this guy out. And then this actually is very good because he actually dodges Imperm and Effect Veiler because he tributes himself. And he's a recurring card that comes back. A lot of cards, for example, a lot of people now play Dimensional Barrier, but if you get this card out, if you get Stardust Dragon Assault mode out before Dimensional Barrier is played, you can actually, because this is a main deck monster, you can actually keep on using this, and it's not affected by it. Now, of course, you need Swordsoul Emergence. Now, this kind of becomes an additional 3 copies of Mo Yi, but a lot of times I find myself getting a Tenyi monster instead. And Chi-Shao can search this card, which you can use to search Taya or Long Yuan in order to keep on going. But getting the spell card in the graveyard means that on the crackback, you can use Taya in order to go into Yazi. Then, of course, 3 copies of Vessel for the Dragon Cycle. You really want to make Chao Feng because you don't have Baron. This card allows you to extend your Ashuna and Adhara into 3 additional copies of each. If you have 1 Ashuna or 1 Vishada, what you can do is you can link it off into Monk of the Tenyi, and then use Vessel for the Dragon Cycle, get the Ashuna summon Adhara, and then you're good to go. Now we are playing 1 copy of the Reborn, the Sacred Summit. This is really good because you can use Taya in order to send Mo Yi to the grave, make Chi-Shao, and then search the Sacred Summit, summon the Mo Yi, reveal a Worm or Long Yuan in hand, go into Draco Berserker or Dragite. Then of course, Emergency Teleport is another 3 additional copies of Psy Reflector. This card is very good because it's Ash bait. If people ash this card, you are very easily able to go into Taya, go into Long Yuan, Ashuna, whatnot. 1 copy of Call by the Grave to stop hand traps. Now, and then of course the 1 Swordsoul Blackout in order to search it off of the Chi-Shao. We have a really good board. But I encourage you to put more attention to the monsters rather than trying to get the disruption of the blackout. It's really good to have that pop too, but especially with Qixing Long Wan, you actually want to get that burn damage in. So it actually becomes very useful. Then you have 2 copies of Assault Mode Activate. This is to facilitate against bricking on Assault Beast. If you have Assault Mode Activate in hand, you can actually still use Psy Reflector because you use Assault Beast to search the second copy of Assault Mode activated. If you draw 2, well, then you just cry. But this prevents bricking. And 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. If you want a cheaper variant, you can switch this out for Forbidden Chalice, but Infinite Impermanence is a card that can actually be used as a hand trap when you're going second in game 1, and it's a better card than Chalice because it also negates the column. However, this card is $10 right now on TCG Player. If you can get your hands on Cyber Strikes, I really recommend doing that, and a lot of people already have. But if you don't, grab yourself a couple of Forbidden Chalices. Or replace these with Pot of Desires. Now for the extra deck, we have obviously the 1 copy of Swordsoul Grandmaster Qishao, searches the deck and has a negate. 1 copy of the Cheng Ying. I don't make this card going first, I actually prefer to make Qixing Long Run, but Cheng Ying's really good on the crackback because he can banish. You just negate 1 random monster. With Qishao, doesn't matter if it does anything because then you just banish with Cheng Ying, banish the graveyard, and then you can go in for game. Qixing Long Run, I like making this card first even before Qishao to get that extra draw, because that draw becomes really useful in order to facilitate. If you draw to a Swordsoul copy, your Worm monster, your Mo Ye is online, and you only have 1. Yazi, because you make it second, and then you just pop a card, pop the Yazi, special summon the Mo Ye or the Taya, go ahead. Baxia combos are very widely known, and 2 copies of it because you need to go it. It's good going first, and it's good going second. And because this spins, this is actually really good going second. Chao Feng is there just to make sure that you can prevent against Nibiru, prevent against Goldstalker, prevent against Effect Veiler. You get out the Chao Feng, and if you don't commit to your normal summon doing this, you are good to go. Dragite's there for the spell trap negation. This is really good because a lot of people will side in like board breakers such as Raigeki. So this prevents that from your spending your Stardust Dragon Assault mode on it. You can spend the Dragite. Draco Berserker, because it's a really good tool to OTK, and it's another 8 stars so that Mo Ye can get a draw. Stardust Dragon obviously to facilitate the assault mode, and then for the spice, you have the Crimson Blader. The Crimson Blader is really good, especially against Despias. If you can stop a Despia, branded Despia deck, and just punch into their Luber, it doesn't matter if the effects are negated, because they're most likely going to negate the Qishao. But you get the Crimson Blader out, they can't summon any of their level 8 fusion monsters, and this will also be good for tier elements when those come out. It won't do too much against splites, but splites we have other cards for. Shaman of the Tenyi, this allows you to reborn a Taya or a Mo Ye or any of the Tenyis in order to make just 1 last level 8, usually Draco Berserker, because you'll be warm locked by that point. And then 2 copies of the Monk, pretty standard. And then the one card that I really like in here is Draco Masters of the Tenyi. So the original list used Ravenous Croco Dragon, which is a level 9, which you can make obviously because you can make Chao Feng, but my problem with Ravenous Croco Dragon is because you don't get a lot of drawing in this deck as if you do in something like Virtual World. This deck you want to use, you really only want to make Chao Feng as your level 9. You really want to keep your level 8s clear. You could go into something like Red Dragon Archfiend or Hot Red Dragon Archfiend to get a pop, but Draco Masters the Tenyi is really good in a simplified game state. If both players spend a lot of their resources, you bring this guy out. Literally getting Shaman out is all you need in order to get into Draco Masters the Tenyi, because you go Shaman, reborn the Monk, then you go Draco Masters the Tenyi, pop 2, and then you have a really strong monster, 2600 attack to just punch. Then of course for the side deck, this is what I've thought about and what I like. We have 2 copies of Radiant. This is a 7-star, and that's good because you can, on the crackback, use Psy Reflector or Tenyi Spirit Adhara, and then go into any one of your generic level 8s, that being Dragite, Draco Berserker, Stardust, or Crimson Blader. And Kaijus are really good, especially against like Marincess, for example, or you can use this on the Masquerade Blazing Dragon for branded Despia. 2 copies of Raigeki to blow up the field. This also is good in the mirror, because they have to spend the Baron on this, unless they have Dragite. For back row hate, we have Harpy's Feather Duster, and then because this is a cheaper variant, Mystical Space Typhoon. So a lot of players might have Mystical Space Typhoons from the old stuff. I really like this card. You don't want to play Twin Twisters because you really need that card advantage, and you can't really work with the graveyard if you don't get started, and if you get stopped by Ash Blossom, you're kind of screwed. So Mystical Space Typhoon, you could replace this out for Cosmic Cyclone if you have it. I didn't have Cosmic Cyclone, so I have Mystical Space Typhoon, so that's why I use that. Then we have 2 copies of Pot of Desires. Now the reason why this is in the side deck is because when you're going second, like in game 2, let's say you win game 1, you side out the entire Assault Mode Engine. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You side out 11 cards. This allows you to keep playing. Let's say you get Ash Blossom. This allows you to dig deeper into the deck for an out and to be able to continue to break the board. You can banish 10 and then draw into a Raigeki, or you can draw into a Kaiju and take out their Link 4 if you're playing against Marincess, for example. If you don't want to play the Desires, let's say it's in another deck, you're feeling lazy, just play another copy of Raigeki and play another copy of Radiant, so for more consistency in those cards. 3 copies of Dark Ruler no more. This is just cheaper Forbidden Droplet, and I don't like Forbidden Droplet in Sword Soul because you lose card advantage, and again, if your Mo Yi or Taya gets Impermed or Veilered or Ghost Ogred, you're kind of in a bad position. Then obviously for the last card, this is specifically just to stop Branded Despia, Dimensional Barrier. You want to put 3 copies in, you put this in if you immediately, as soon as you know if you're going against Branded Despia. And that's pretty much it. So I really like this deck, and we're actually going to do a couple of test hands, so stay tuned for that.